Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see your smiling faces on such a dreary day. Did everybody enjoy yesterday? Actually saw somebody raking leaves without a shirt on yesterday, which I thought was kind of funny. Before we get started, how many of you are currently growing inside of some sort of structure? Halfway, sorta? Doing something?
The house.
The house inside, that's a structure, yes. I've started stuff in there before myself. Okay.
Blew away last night.
It blew away last night?
Our half blew away.
Oh, man. Yeah, we'll talk about that, okay? All right, so the presentation is extending the season. How long can I really grow in Wyoming? How many of you are Wyoming natives? Oh, good. Excellent. From Sheridan? Okay. Let's go someplace higher in elevation. Pinedale. Oh, cool. Excellent. You have many challenges. Encampment? Riverton? Farson? Where? Where are you guys from? Where? Devil's Tower, okay. Rapid City? Sorry, I didn't even go out of the state, did I?
We're in Story, just up the mountain.
Oh, yeah, yep, a little higher, right? Yep, you have challenges too, don't you? It was actually in Story where I saw the gentleman raking leaves without a shirt on yesterday.
Wheatland by way of Florida.
Wheatland by way of Florida. Yeah, okay, so how many of you are transplants here within the last 5 years?
Well, 5 years.
10 years? 10? Yeah, okay. So you came to Wyoming for the beautiful summertime, right? And the wind. Okay, so this is me. I am an entomologist by training. I work for the University of Wyoming. I'm a cyclist. My wife and I ride tandem bikes. This is a recumbent tandem trike. This is what we do in our fun to have fun. But, you know, it's a geek-mobile and the wind bothers us a lot, so we try to find other places to ride it. I consider myself a catalyst. So I like to help people help themselves and get them through some difficult things that they need to work through. I spent 3 years as a graduate student researching beneficial insects on aphid control, okay? I spent 15 years in the ag chemical industry after that looking for new insecticides. And after that career ended, my wife and I moved back to Wyoming and we spent 8 years operating our own small-scale commercial U-pick farm focusing on raspberries and strawberries. But we had other things too, sweet corn, winter squash, those types of things. I have been working for the University of Wyoming since 2008 as an extension educator, and part of my role is that I am the pesticide safety education program coordinator for the state. So people who use and apply pesticides, I'm the guy that works on the curriculum, helps people get tested, helps them get their licenses, okay? But that's only half of my role. The other half of my role is to help people like you who own small acreages, rural living, horticulture items, those types of things, okay? So that's part of it. So if you see that weird thing out on the highway, don't veer towards it. Give me lots of room, okay? It's 9.5 feet long. Okay. Why do we want to extend the growing season? Because it's so tiny. Because the number one reason is we like to eat, right? I know I do, right? Growing food in Wyoming can be very challenging, okay? But this is what we really want to see, whether it's at a farmer's market or in your own yard, right? So, okay. I like to extend the season because I like to eat. But I only plant the things in my garden that I like to eat. I'm very selective, okay? Why would you grow things, unless you want to give stuff away or sell it, that you don't particularly like to eat, okay? It is challenging, right? growing in Wyoming is very challenging. For the Pinedale people, we'll get to you guys in a second. And it's a personally satisfying thing to do, okay? When I was a kid, I didn't grow up on a farm, but having a farm and working on a farm, to me, it's kind of a artist type thing. Every year, it's a new canvas. I had really bad failures last year in a particular crop. I have this new year to try to figure out how to make it better, right? So we're all artists and producers, okay? What are some of Wyoming's challenges? The weather. Late winter. Well, what was yesterday? What was yesterday? 70, almost 80 degrees, right? And what's today? Snow. It's springtime. Okay? The number one thing in Wyoming is the wind. If you can protect your crops from the wind by creating microclimates or putting up fencing or those types of things, you will already be a step ahead, okay? I think instead of low-flying trains, it should be flipping semis, right? Yeah. So, you know, Wyoming geographically is a wind tunnel, right? So everything kind of funnels through the wind rivers, and then it goes out, and then it just blasts everything, okay? I think that's in Cheyenne. I'm not quite sure where that picture is. I tried to find the original. How about this? Anybody ever had a hail problem? No. Let me tell you, growing fruit in Wyoming and hail is a killer. It just doesn't work. You guys get hail too up in the Black Hills, right? Yeah, okay. So, but we don't have this kind of hail. We have this kind of hail. And it's not just big, but it's a car-killing hail. It's livestock-killing hail, right? People-killing hail. So, I mean, that's a challenge. If you have a crop out there, it's gone. And you get to start over next year, right? So, the number of hail days. I cut this off right at Wyoming. So the hail, I've got another slide in my next presentation that talks about Hail Alley. But this point right here, that's about LaGrange, Wyoming. How many of you are familiar with LaGrange? North Cheyenne, okay? This is, on average, 10 hail events per year that are larger than an inch, okay? I went to a program that Don Day put on, you know, the weather guy in the state, and he basically showed a target around LaGrange with concentric circles out of it that LaGrange is the place. If you want to grow stuff, you don't want to live there, okay? But if you get to the Black Hills, that's a 12, okay? You're up there. You're getting them, okay? So, you know, wind, hail, right? The highly variable spring and fall temperatures that we get. Yesterday and today are prime examples, right? So, you know, I've got a great crop going, and a frost comes. I get to start over. You know, the greenhouse industry loves that in Wyoming, right? It's like everybody gets excited on those 80-degree days. They go to the greenhouse, they buy all their plants, and they go, put them outside. You've done that before, haven't you? And then you get a frost or a freeze, and they're done. So where do you go? You go get your starts again. It's a business. Okay, so the primary ones, the wind, the hail, and the high variable spring and fall temperatures. Non-consecutive growing season. Let's talk about Pinedale for a minute, okay? How often do you get freezing temperatures in July? Sometimes it's nicer in January than it is in July, okay? And oftentimes, all of these things happen all at once, unfortunately. But it's reality, okay? All right, so what are season extenders? Anything that protect our crops from, and I should have changed this from abnormal or unexpected to normal and expected because we are in Wyoming, right? Anything that can help us save this crop, right? Okay, so we're going to start simple, or maybe we're going to start really complex, and then we're going to go on. How many people have the luxury of a commercial greenhouse space? They certainly don't have commercial greenhouses in LaGrange, okay? They're made of glass usually. They break really easily. They're really expensive to build. So you're talking $300 per square foot just to build them. And then you have dollars invested to heat them in the wintertime and cool them in the summertime. So how can I do this a little bit more economical? Rammed earth geothermal greenhouses or wallopinis. So Cowboy State Daily, who read the article this last week or 10 days ago about somebody near, was it Powell? That has a wallopini that they put in? Yeah, so they're around, right? So this is basically a rammed earth greenhouse or a greenhouse that's been built into the ground with a cover of some type on it. This gentleman is in Alliance, Nebraska. His wife asked him to build a geothermal greenhouse a geothermal house in the 70s. And he got to thinking about it. Well, I'm going to build myself a greenhouse. So he explored these wallopini things, and it's basically soil on the north wall and full southern exposure with some raised beds in it. He built this in the 80s. He is growing citrus. So lemons. He has grapefruit. He has oranges. And boy, does he make a killing at the farmer's market in Alliance, Nebraska. Okay? Unfortunately, he's in his 90s. His wife has since passed away. But if you get the opportunity to visit one of these things, they're pretty incredible. Again, he is north of Alliance. There's also one at the NRCS in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, if you're interested in these structures. Russ has gone into business with some folks to try to sell some kits for these things, and they work out to be about $20 per square foot to build. Okay? So $25,000, you can have a structure like this of your own, but that's just for materials. So somebody's got to help you build it. And Russ claims that it only costs him $50 a month to heat and cool it because it's geothermal. He has dug trenches, he's laid pipe, and he's got a fan system that shuttles warm air in and cool air out, and so it keeps it a decent temperature to grow stuff. It's a really fascinating thing to go see if you ever get the opportunity. Okay. So let's talk about some passive things and some things that are a little bit more economical, right? Require no additional inputs other than yourself, your family, or your friends, once or twice. Okay? They protect crops from our highly variable growing conditions. They allow us to plant earlier and harvest later. That's the intent, right? We want to grow more frequently, more often. And some of these can even allow for year-round production in Wyoming, depending on where you live. Maybe not in Pinedale, but we can help you. Blankets. Grandma's strategy, right? Hey, it's going to frost tonight. Go get the blankets. Let's cover up the garden, okay? Fabric or plastic tarps. It works. It's pretty labor intensive because you got to get out there the next day and pull things off. And if it freezes again that night, you got to put them back on. You know, kind of inconvenient, but they work. Okay? Then there's these things. How many of you have played around with walls of water? How often do they get holes in them and don't work like you think they ought to? Hot caps. Any of you familiar with the hot caps? They're little paper things. They work really well on, cabbage, small plants. They're not very big, but they do work really well. You can get them at your greenhouses. And there's a guy down in Torrington area, he builds sailor caps. And so it's basically a combination of a wall of water and a hot cap. It's a big, let me start with the frame. It's a frame, a metal frame that he welds up that's about the size of a wall of water. You put it in around your plant, and then he's got basically a clear plastic bag that you fill up with water, not fill it up, but you put a couple of gallons in it, and then you drop it over the top of the hot cap, and it works just like a wall of water.
We had somebody at the bee conference in Rapid City selling something exactly
Oh.
like that. It looked exactly like somebody took a tomato cage, cut the extensions off the legs, and then just a large, clear,
Plastic sack.
like a 5 mm.
Yep.
Drape it over, pull it back up.
Yep, exactly. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. But I don't know where to, I can't even find those on the internet anymore. So I don't know if the guy's in production but they work really well. Commercially available woven floating row covers. How many of you ever use this stuff? So have you noticed I highlighted the word floating? What's one of the problems in Wyoming? The wind, right? So you got to weight them down, you got to bury them. Again, it's pretty labor intensive to keep some of this stuff out and use it. So can be a problem. Low tunnels. How many of you are using low tunnels? Good alternative, yes. Amy Erickson here, later today when it's snowing, is going to be running a low tunnel workshop, correct? At least that's the plan.
We'll go out and see what.
And look at stuff, yeah.
Who are wanting to brave for that.
Okay. But these work really well, right? It's the same concept of something bigger, but it can get really warm in these things. And Amy, you're probably going to talk more about this, but it can get 140 degrees plus in there really fast. And you can scorch stuff, you can make your own salsa right there in the low tunnel. Okay? They work, they do the work, they do have their purpose, but they can be a little inconvenient as well. So let's kind of talk about these more semi-permanent type of structures, okay? High tunnels, hoop houses, and geodesic domes. So, just to give you guys a little bit of history, and I might have this in my slide presentation someplace, but I started with Extension in 2009. There was a hoop house workshop in Casper. I started with Extension in 2008. There was a hoop house workshop, geez, in Casper in 2009. And the gentleman who put it on was from New Mexico State University, extension educator from New Mexico, Del Jimenez. And one of the people in the audience was Ted Craig, who used to be the grants administrator for the Wyoming Department of Ag. And he and I started talking, and we started talking with Del, and Del was really interested in expanding his program and having somebody in Wyoming do the same type of thing. So Ted Craig and I went down to New Mexico, and we learned how to build a bunch of these structures. However, in New Mexico, they produce all winter long and stop growing in the summertime because it's so dang hot, right? So they just open up the structures, don't use them in the summertime just because it's so difficult to keep things going in the summer. Ted Craig and I started writing grants, and we were able to get some funding, and so we started building hoop houses around the state. But it's really important that you look at the design, you consider some venting options, because they can heat up really fast. And what I'm finding is that the smaller the structure, the hotter they stay. And I think, are you guys familiar with how lakes turn? You know, big bodies of water, they'll turn every year, every spring and summer, or spring and fall. Air masses do the same type of thing, right? So the bigger air mass that you have, so the larger structure that you have, it's easier to control the temperature in them. The temperature is more moderated than on a smaller structure. So it's important to have something like roll-up sides on them, automatic venting, or solar-powered attic fans. You can purchase those as well, right? But all those things add cost. But again, you're not paying for energy to incorporate them if they are solar or other means of opening. Okay? The further that you want to go into the winter time, it's also important that you think about, you have this enclosed space. Okay, so temperature's 32 degrees. It gets to 27, 26, so I'm still protected in a large structure. But if it gets below 26 degrees, you're probably going to want to go out and throw another layer on. So inside a high tunnel hoop house or geodesic dome, floating row cover is a really good place to use it, okay? Because it's not going to blow away inside, all right? These things, this stuff, so at the extension office in Torrington, it was, the building that we were in was a county building, and it was designed as a geothermal structure, but it never worked properly. It had windows up high, and they had these insulated window coverings on them that were broken and dismantled and stuffed in a corner someplace. So we took them and we covered plants out in the high tunnel. It worked really well. So it was a quilted fabric, just throw it on at night, kind of collecting heat. So you know, I always mispronounce this word, cloches. I believe it's French, but it's basically some type of a covering that you can put over your plants. It used to be like a glass bell jar upside down on top of things. You can buy varieties of those. Again, sailor caps and walls of water on the inside of your high tunnel will further extend your season. And what do you do if you have cloudy days, right? Because all of this is really important, that if you have multiple cool, cloudy days in a row, your production is going to tank, okay? So, seasonal watering is very important because these structures aren't going to get any natural water, right? You've got to have some way to water them. I recommend using drip tape. How many of you are familiar with drip tape? Not soaker hose, but drip tape, the flat stuff, right? That's got the emitters already in it, okay? That stuff works really well in these structures. And if you can put a frost-free hydrant inside your structure, you are going to greatly appreciate that because you'll be able to water much longer into the season, much earlier into the season. What I'm finding is over the winter time, because I do have perennial crops in my high tunnel, I don't have to water but maybe once a month, if that. Okay, so water, if the plants are growing really slow, your water usage is really a whole lot less. It's usually more humid in the high tunnel in the wintertime. Okay. So planting dates, and this is planting inside of a structure. Okay. So this is kind of for me. In Goshen County, we're about 4,200 feet, and any time after the spring solstice or the vernal equinox, which was what, the 22nd of March? Right? How many of you would like to be planting the 22nd of March? I know you would. Okay? And I should have brought, like yesterday's photos of my greens and my radishes that have germinated and are up. But my salad greens are, you know, this tall and ready to go pretty soon. And then, but it's also crop dependent, okay? So, those cold crops, not cold crops, but those cold crops can be planted earlier. And then you have these warmer things that can be planted a little bit later. And it all depends on the soil temperature, okay? So my goal is to have sweet corn out of my high tunnel on the 4th of July. I'm always 5 days late. I can't seem to get it in early enough because I've got some other issues that happen when I plant sweet corn early in my high tunnel. But we'll get to that later in the day. This is a typical plant outside type chart, right? So you've got all these things that can be planted between 40 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit, soil temperature. How many of you guys monitor your soil temperature? Yeah, it's very important that you do that, right? Just to plug a soil monitoring thermometer in the ground, keep track of that. If it consistently hits at 40 degrees, you can start planting, okay? Let's see. Oh yeah, and if you want to plant in the fall, October, November is kind of pushing it because it is cold, it's usually cloudy, things might not germinate in November, but you can still plant things in October pretty easily in Wyoming. That will overwinter. Yes?
Do you mean like evening, daytime? When are you monitoring the temperature?
Soil temperature.
But when are you, like, at night or in the day?
So
Just over
the,
24 hours?
the soil temperature doesn't fluctuate as significantly as the air temperature. So once it hits 40 degrees, it'll pretty much stay there.
Did not know that. Okay.
So yeah, it's a heat sink. And what you're really trying to do with these structures is to capture heat during the day and then cover things up at night because, and I think I've got that in here someplace, the outside nighttime temperature will be the inside nighttime temperature. And that's why I'm recommending that in the wintertime you also cover your plants with additional covering, okay? But during the day, open things up, collect as much heat as you possibly can, and then cover it up at night, okay? Yeah, there it is, right there. I was one ahead of myself. So production killers. When we get into, let's say, February, where you have 3 or 4 days that are brutally cold and it's cloudy, your plants aren't going to be doing a whole lot, if anything, okay? So let's talk about production and extending the season. Anybody here from Gillette? Near Gillette? Okay, cool. This was October, okay? So somebody mentioned in here that they wanted to grow tomatoes. The problem is with tomatoes, they need what, 125, 130 days of growing season? We have maybe 90, if you're really lucky. So this was the inside of their high tunnel in October, and tomatoes are producing, eggplant is blooming, and Brussels sprouts are just coming on. Okay? So it's a really, unless you've worked in a high tunnel or hoop house, it's a really interesting environment to be in. And it's very therapeutic because it's green and it's growing, okay? So we're going to jump to Torrington. This was in 2010. This particular structure that we're in, it was 20 by 72, okay? It's entirely made out of PVC ribs and lumber, locally sourced, except for the vent that's in the ceiling up there. It did have roll-up sides, and I am referring to it past tense as it was in production for about 12 years, and then it met its demise. What do you think the demise might have been? The wind, okay? But, you know, for $2.50 a farmable square foot when we built it, and to be in production for 12 years, that's pretty good return on investment, okay? So, you know, it was, when was this? November? November 12th. Snow on the ground, right? It's 48 degrees in there at 10 o'clock in the morning, 72% humidity, but look, there's green stuff growing in there, right? November. We're 45 days past our normal growing season, okay? So we've got, you know, you can't grow tomatoes into November. I'm telling you right now, if you have a passive system, you cannot grow tomatoes into November, okay? But you can grow greens, you can grow root crops, okay? And with a little bit of luck, you can really start pushing some things. So I don't know if you recognize there's kale and there's salad greens, and these are some root crops in here as well. Look, we're also germinating new plants in November. So what my horticulturist did is he built this little structure, covered it with fabric, made it the germinator, put it up on top of that, and started salad greens. Okay? things grow really slow in the wintertime, but they do grow. Okay? Peas in November. Just covered them up. Your wheels are turning, aren't they? I can see it.
You were talking about all this stuff, and I'm just getting hungry.
Well, in a previous presentation or version of this, I would go through all these slides and say, anybody ready for a salad? So, yeah, peas, right? Beets, green beans. Here's the thing that I want to show you. We're November. That's my hand. That is a bean leaf. So things are growing very slowly. There is less light available because we're in a passive system. So they put on a lot of leafy material in order to capture more light. Okay? So they're growing slower, they're concentrating more. Well, I can't say that because I don't know that, but they're a deeper, darker green. Like the leafy greens will be a deeper, darker green than what you can get in the summertime. Okay? Green beans. And again, by the time we were out of there, it was 52 degrees on a wintry, snowy day outside. And, okay. Root crops. Radishes. Turnips. Okay. Cauliflower. Let's jump to December. Okay. About 65 days past normal production outside. Everything outside is toast. It's brown, right? Okay. That's the germinator. Those are the things that we had planted and germinating in November. Okay. The peas are still going in January. So my personal goal is sweet corn at 4th of July and fresh tomatoes at Thanksgiving. Personal goal. Have I made it? So not tomatoes on the vine, but pretty darn close. And I got to get a shorter day length variety of sweet corn so I can have 4th of July sweet corn. Okay? Yeah, the broccoli heads aren't big, but they're harvestable, edible, right? So January broccoli harvest? Salad time? The greens are looking a little tough, but you can sort through them. If you're hungry, you can sort through them, clean up stuff, okay? I think this was tomatoes, or maybe that was the beans. They didn't make it through one portion of the episode, the cold period that we had. Okay, so we had spinach, Swiss chard. Who likes that stuff? I'm sorry. Sugar snap peas, radishes, turnips, and the broccoli was consumed by somebody on site. Not to mention any names. Okay, January 6th, we're still going. Yes, David.
Did you actually get the Brussels sprouts to produce?
So that was in Gillette, and I'm not really sure. I don't know what happened there. We're still in Torrington. Yeah. So 95 days, January 6th. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. It's 68 degrees in the high tunnel, which, heck, that's a nice summer day, actually. Humidity has dropped way off. There's a drift in front of the door. We had to scoop the backside in order to get into it. And there's stuff still growing, okay? They don't look so hot, but they are still growing. So part of production is getting things to overwinter so that you are growing earlier in the spring, right? So once it starts warming up and you get more consistent weather in the springtime, you're ready to go, all right? So salad greens are looking a little tough. We've still got some broccoli heads showing up. Still harvesting root crops, radishes, turnips, okay? Are they humongous? No, but they're edible. What's important to you? Okay, turnips again. Look how white those turnips are. Yes?
And all this time you have that floating cover?
Yes.
Okay, so it's Not that it's terribly heavy, but it is pushing down.
Well, we would put stakes and things to support it so it wasn't resting directly on the plants.
Got it.
Yep. And it might be more than a floating row cover. It might be those insulated blankets too. But again, during the day, it was important to take all that stuff off so you're collecting as much heat and light as you possibly can and then putting it back on at
And
night.
Is there any movement, like a fan going?
No,
No,
not in the wintertime.
just checking.
Yep. David, did you have a question? Okay. All right. Look at the germinator in January. Looking good, right? So, we've made it halfway through the season, halfway through the winter season, okay? Now are you hungry for a salad? Yeah, varieties of spinach. I think there's 2 varieties in there, okay? So, we actually terminated that study in February of that year because we had a really significant aphid problem and they started taking over, which is unfortunate and it is a problem that can occur, okay? But this is my personal hoop house that I have. I was able to get greens to overwinter and by February we had our first salad. Yep, that thing is a modified cloche, okay? If you can buy them commercially, but they come unassembled. I recommend that you have 6 hands to put them together. It took myself, my wife, and my mother to actually put them together because they were difficult, challenging. Okay, and then in March. So February we had a salad. March we had 2 salads. You know, April, so as the temperature is warming up and improving, so's your production. So is it possible? Yes. Can you go all year round? Yes. Okay. So I mentioned that we grew strawberries and raspberries commercially. These are the last strawberries I have. I had an acre of strawberries when we were growing them commercially. This was my wife's favorite variety. It's called Jewel. And so they are perennially growing in the high tunnel. Okay. It sometimes is a little weird. We have to do some special things to them that you can't do to them, that you should be doing to them outside. But they're June-bearing strawberries. But because they're in a high tunnel, they actually start producing in May. I love strawberries. They're the first fruit of the season. Okay. Raspberries, same thing. This is March in 2023. It was 90 degrees on my high tunnel that day. Okay, and raspberries are just starting to come through. Nice little bit of green growth popping. And again, I should have taken pictures of them this year. But they're like this already, okay? And so the raspberries that we have in the high tunnel is a thornless variety, and if you want to grow raspberries in a high tunnel, I recommend a thornless variety. So it's, they normally should start producing fruit in August. We have fruit production in July. Starting in July, and it'll go all the way through November till we get a really hard killing freeze inside the high tunnel. And I only have 8 feet. That's all we need. Okay, so just a reminder, the outside overnight temperatures during the winter is what the inside temperature will be. So if it gets to be 20 below at night outside, that's what the inside temperature of the structure will be. That's why you want to continue to add additional layers to it. So a low tunnel inside of a high tunnel isn't that bad of an idea, right? Okay. And then again, I've mentioned this a couple times. What you're really trying to do is on those sunny days, you're trying to capture that heat. You're trying to get that soil warmed up, and then when you cover it again, you're keeping it overnight, keeping it long enough overnight. Okay. So, research projects. You know, we've been doing this for a while. What have we looked at? We've looked at insulating the soil 2 feet down with 2-inch hard cell insulation. We've looked at black water barrels to improve the heat capacity in a space. We've looked at double fabric on a hoop house, okay, compared to one single cover. And I got to tell you, out of all the things that we looked at in this size of a structure, which is 16 by 32, the double cover worked the best because it moderates the temperature more significantly than any of the others. It takes longer to cool down. It does take longer to warm up, so it just kind of keeps things more stable. Okay? There was a fifth one, and I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what the treatment was. It was a long time ago. So there's other things you can do too. If you want to invest a little time and money, there is a gentleman up in Sundance who put radiant heat in his beds, in his flower beds. So he put coiled heat systems like they do in some houses, in the flooring of some houses, and he heats his raised beds. It'll work, but it's an energy investment that you have to probably pay for. Okay? Pest issues. You will have them. It's not a matter of if, but when. Okay? Insects are significant, insects and mites. And this afternoon at 2 o'clock, you can attend my presentation on pest management if you want. Okay? You know, I am an entomologist. It's an opportunity for me to nerd out. We might not get out of here at 3 o'clock. It might take me a little bit longer to get through it. Okay? The key thing is plan accordingly and be quick to respond. All right? So we'll talk about all the different steps of pest management later this afternoon, but it's important to recognize the problem and get on it as quickly as possible. Okay? Do you guys know what this is?
Bowl.
Nope. Any ideas? So I had a couple in encampment who we did I did a workshop in, Rollins, 2011, I think. They attended it. They built a hoop house similar to it in encampment. Everybody familiar with encampment? Where they live, it's 8,200 feet. It's up there, okay? So she calls me and she goes, Jeff, I got this thing eating my plants. I go, well, you know, I can't get there. And she goes, it's usually happening at night. What can I do? I go, you got a trail cam? Set up a trail cam. Oh, that's a really good idea. So they put a trail cam in their hoop house. She sends me this blurry black and white picture of, imagine that thing sitting on its hind legs inside of a broccoli plant, so its tail's hanging down. And I'm looking at it going, that's a kangaroo. That is a bushy-tailed wood rat. It's a pack rat, okay? So anything from all sorts of mice and rats and things that you never see during the daytime will show up in your hoop house and consume all the stuff that you want, okay? So we'll talk about some of that stuff this afternoon. It's a fun story. So simple structures, relatively simple structures. And so I'm on the agenda for the next hour or two, which we'll talk more about the structures if you want to attend that. I'm not trying to promote myself, but they're like, Jeff, you need to talk about all these things. Okay. So help feed your family, right? Yourself and your family. Increase market availability for local food. Part of the marketing strategy, if you want to sell things, is you want to be the first one at the market with a particular crop, right? So I have carrots early. I'm going to sell carrots, okay? I have tomatoes really late. I'm going to sell tomatoes. Or if I have tomatoes early, you've got your hoop house. If you start them early, you're going to have them earlier than maybe everybody else, okay? Not that there's anything competitive about that, but there is. And, it can provide an alternative income for you, or it can be an income saver for you, right? So you know you're growing your own food, you know where it's coming from, you know how it's being produced, okay? I'm about 10 minutes early. So if you have questions about what we've talked about in this hour, yes, ma'am.
So the raised beds inside your hoop house, what are they made of?
So there's a company in Torrington. It's called Nature's Composites, and it's recycled plastic and wheat straw. They do not ship. I brought a box of goodies for next presentation. So this is one of their products. This is part of a fence picket, and this is what I use to hold the skin product on the structure, okay? I don't have to cut lath, I don't have to stain lath, I just have to cut these things. These things are commercially available through Home Depot, okay? Pardon me?
Is it like that Trek step?
It's like a chew bar. No, yeah, it's exactly like a Trex thing, okay? And you can pass it around. My wife and I cycle a lot, right? They used to make, the original Power Bar used to look just like that, but it was sticky. Okay, so if you go to the company, you can buy their seconds for pennies on the dollar. If you go to Home Depot and buy a 6-pack of fence pickets, I think it's $90. I buy fence pickets from Torrington for $1 each. Okay, so it makes sense to make a trip to Torrington if you want. But the product that the raised bed is made out of, it was a 4x4 beam, which was hollow. Okay, they don't make those anymore. They now make 5x5 beams, which will accommodate a pressure-treated 4x4. You can just slip it inside of it, and where it comes together, that's where you make your joints. I mean, you can use a 4x4 inside of it, screw it together. So it's available. It's really heavy. You can go get it. So
on the inside, you don't have to line it or anything?
I don't. Nope. Do you want me to go back? Do you want me to go back to one of those pictures?
How old are they?
How old are they? Our hoop house has been in production since 20, oh, that's probably 14, 15, 10 to 14 years, let's put it that way. Yes?
This might be getting into the next portion as well, but with your hoop house in particular, what thickness plastic do you use and how often do you replace it?
So there are multiple manufacturers of the woven, this is getting into the next one, and
Well, we can wait until later. I was curious because there was a thought that popped off and I wrote it down so I could ask.
yeah, we'll talk about that in the next one, if you're here.
Oh, I'm saying.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Any other questions that aren't leading into the next one? Yes?
What can you use, so I have raised beds, some of them have low tunnels, some of them don't. What can I use on the raised beds to warm the ground? Because you're saying it's got to be 40 degrees, or should be.
What can you use to raise, so you can be like the guy in Sundance and put radiant heat in the bottom of
I
them.
don't want to do that. I mean, what can I put on there right now that
This-
may draw the
Okay, so
warmth of the sun?
clear plastic.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of research that's been done, clear plastic versus black plastic. Clear plastic actually allows more solarization than black plastic. It allows the heat and light in, warms things up. It will not only raise your temperature, but it will nuke your weed seeds.
Oh, got lots of that.
So you'll get a benefit of that. Weed seed nuking, yes. Clear, yes.
What do you think of the red that they suggest to put around tomato plants?
I've tried it, I haven't noticed any difference.
Okay.
But that's, so your individual results may vary. So extension, working for extension, I have two answers. It depends, and your individual results may vary. Yes? Yeah,
Well, after you raise your
your temperature during the day, would you want to cover it at night to hold the?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just with the plastic or with something more?
So the plastic's going to retain all the heat that it captures during the day. So you wouldn't have to add any more
So you
heat.
wouldn't have to add any more?
If you're just trying to get your temperature up and not have anything planted in it, clear plastic.
Okay, day and night.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And you had another follow-up?
Your winter, when you kept going through the winter and stuff, do you monitor the soil temperature?
I do.
And does that need to be 40?
So here's the funny thing. 40 degrees helps things germinate.
Okay.
If the soil happens to freeze after things have germinated, your plants are still alive. They're still going to be there, but their growth will significantly slow.
So in your high tunnel, then what is your normal temperature for your ground?
In the wintertime,
Yeah.
it'll be 30 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And if it's 30 degrees, you don't have to water because your plants aren't growing.
Right.
They're just hanging out. This year in my hoop house, I watered in November and then kind of forgot about stuff and maybe got out there in the end of January and watered again. And really, the only thing I had going this year was my raspberry and strawberries. And they're pretty much dormant in the wintertime, so they didn't need any extra water. Yes. Other questions? I'm here to help.
Are there any perennial vegetables?
Are there any perennial vegetables?
Yeah, they just keep growing and growing and growing.
Tomatoes are perennial vegetables.
Are they really?
Yeah. Not in Wyoming, but they're perennials. You can take a cutting of a tomato plant in the fall,
Yeah.
put it in a pot, and keep that plant going next year. I've actually done this. Keep it going all winter and then plant it next spring.
So if you like that kind.
Yeah.